You'd have to work.
Sailor, remind me to get those
I
minutes
didn't
from
see
you.
you all in the
Yes,
camera.
sorry.
Chad. Chad was dying there. Oh, yeah. Big dog.
One more.
Did you get snowed in up there then, or? Did you come home and get everybody
Sarah, did anybody record last night still? I'm not sure. I know they weren't able to live stream it.
I wondered if Trey did.
Maybe.
I don't know. I kind of was curious.
I know Lynette got a bunch of it sent.
Did she?
Oh, yes,
She
I
was
did.
gonna be there.
All right. We'll call the meeting to order. Any additions or changes to the agenda? The short agenda? Okay, if there's nothing changed or anything to add, we'll approve the agenda. So can I get a motion to approve?
A motion to approve.
Okay, and a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that passes. Visitors to be heard. I see a few people back there. Are you guys wanting to talk
When can we speak?
right now?
Whenever we want?
What, do you have something that's on the agenda or
No, I was just curious if we got comments or anything,
during what?
when you're doing your meeting.
If it's something related to the agenda, then we can wait for comment.
I was just curious if I want to make a comment about something.
Mm-hmm, you can.
I mean, I got nothing to comment about, but I hear what's going on.
Okay, so you don't wanna, until we trigger
I'm
you,
not gonna-
then.
I just want to know if there's a discussion being held on something, if we can provide input.
Okay,
That's all I want to know.
all right, so if it comes to us, just let us know and we'll let you talk at that point. Anyone else? All right, then we'll move on to the approval of last meeting, the minutes from, what was it, February 18th. Once someone's ready, if they want to motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda, the minutes from last week.
Okay, and a second.
I'll second that.
All right, all in favor of approving the agenda, or the minutes from last month? Any opposed? Okay, moving on to the Parks and Rec Director report.
All right, I'll kind of breeze through this. You've got the memo in your packet. I just wanted to take a quick second to thank the sponsors that came forth to sponsor the Parks and Rec program this year. I was very grateful for that and for the support to help make this all possible. At our highest level, the Parks and Rec champion, we had Security Bank and Nielsen Construction come forward with the sponsorship. And the supporter level, we had Benson Remodeling, Aspen Solutions, MRG Hoff, Hanisch Electric, Lennox Insurance, Stockwell Engineers, Redbeard Construction, and then Chevy Youth Baseball and Softball, Billy in Southtown. And then for our Park and Rec partners, we had Cairo Sport, First Interstate Bank, Saddle Up, Jarman Family Funeral Home, and Big Iron. And then we had a couple Park and Rec friends, so Exchange Insurance, Lewis Drug, and Brian and Angie Zerpel. So a big thanks to all of them for coming forward. We also have a couple other donors potentially for our dog park, which which I'm very excited about. SDK and then another one that we're waiting to hear back from. And so, we're just excited to hopefully be able to kind of get those secured and move forward with the dog park that the community's been interested in, so. Going to youth recreation. We had our soccer coaches meeting earlier this week. Thanks, Robert, for helping to facilitate that. I was at the 10U baseball tryout that same night. So the coaches will be hopefully starting practice if all the snow melts here next week, with the first games to begin March 28th. No Easter weekend games, and then we'll go through to May 2nd, Saturday mornings. Baseball and softball registrations are in. We ended up with 95 baseball and 88 softball. That's down slightly from the year before. We did do t-ball separately, whereas last year we had softball, like t-ball girls in with the softball, but even accounting for that, we were down a little bit for each of those, but not too bad. I will be meeting with rec coaches here in the hopefully next 2 weeks, and rosters will be announced mid-April, with practices to begin soon after that. The 10U baseball tournament team tryouts were this week, and those tryout results went out this afternoon. It was a great group of kids, and excited to get that going as well.
Is there one team or?
Just one team.
One?
Yep, one team of 12, so.
Okay.
And then we did not have enough for a 12U tournament team this year that city sponsored, so. T-ball and flag football registrations are still open, and I'm still continuing to do work on our summer rec programming. We did hire 3 rec assistants this week. Excited about that. So we've got kind of the staff ready to go, and I need to build out that programming with local volunteers. We had so many people step up. Super grateful for that last year, and hoping that we can continue on with kind of a lot of what we did last year, and then bring in some new ideas as well. Let's see, summer, so for adult programming, we've got pickleball and adult volleyball. Both of those registrations will open soon. Pickleball will be first, followed by volleyball later on in April. We are still accepting lifeguard applications for the pool. We're hoping to hear back and get those applications in very soon, so that we can start planning and potentially recruiting more if needed. For anybody that is interested, or that we do try to, kind of have apply, there's still time to complete that lifeguard certification and things too. There's some openings in Sioux Falls, I know, as well, so help spread the word on that if you could. Hoping to have a meeting soon with the Pedal Pals group to kind of get a game plan for this spring and summer. And we'll be meeting with the school for some planning now that the school district did approve girls soccer as a school sport, and excited to work with them on the use for the old football field as a practice space for them. And I have not had a chance to do much on the planning side for our spring community engagement, but looking to get some things going here real soon on that as well. Got some things in the works, but nothing kind of out publicly yet, so. And then tonight is our first steering committee meeting for the master park planning process, right after this meeting. And then we have 2 focus groups next Wednesday. So we've got a focus group around the lunch hour, surrounding local companies, businesses on the economic development side of the master park plan. And then that evening, next Wednesday, I have a special invite to folks to join more so from the sports use and special use of parks and facilities. So those people were invited, had a pretty good response already so far. I'm hoping to get some more RSVPs on that. And then there's a public meeting open to all then on Thursday the 26th in the evening. And we'll talk a little bit more about that at our next steering committee meeting to follow. So any questions on any of the programming?
Thank you.
Yep.
All right, we'll move on then to old business. A field use fee schedule.
Just a background as a refresher, I think there were a couple questions at this meeting, at the last meeting with this group, and I think there was also a question at city council, just on what our policy is on the fee structure for field use. So kind of dug into that a little bit and been doing some looking, reached out to a couple communities and so forth. In your memo, so in your packet, you can see, there's a couple different things that I wanted to just touch base on. Our current policy states that facilities are provided free of charge, but in fact, on the resolution, on the city's current resolution that was set back in December, there is $100 fee for baseball field use. For me, as the staff person carrying that out, it's a little bit difficult because I don't know if it's $100 for, you know, if that's a whole day, which is what it says, but then if somebody uses it for an hour and a half, I think there's room to kind of define that a little bit more and make another recommendation for city council for review. So for example, down in that memo, this was just kind of based on one of the things I saw at another community, roughly, but similar dollar amounts, but for example, $15 per hour for practices, $50 for a game. You know, there's more that goes into that with field dragging and chalking and that sort of thing. And then $100 per field per day for tournaments. Certainly open to discussion on that piece of it when we get into the discussion part there. But you know, I think the intent or the conversation that your group had last time around was that, you know, for our city-sponsored rec programs and things, we have our registration fee, of which you can make a case that part of that, you know, part of that money does go towards the field maintenance. And so if we have other groups or entities that maybe don't have a partnership with us, that there is cost to us for that. So just to have it be reasonable, but have something where we can recoup some of those sure costs. So. On the next, I had another attachment in the packet and was.
May I interrupt?
Yeah.
May I for a minute?
I think maybe come up here though?
Yes.
or-
Okay, well,
And we'll have you.
on this fee situation, I've had a little conversation with her. I hope you realize that that facility down there, whether it's for Little League, softball, or baseball, most of the work that's been put into that through the years has been volunteer labor. One of the organizations that's been a major factor in that's American Legion. And we took some grief off of your hands a couple of years ago with a 13 and 14-year-old program. And I would hope that the American Legion programs are not going to be charged to use that facility. And going back, because right now this year, we're going to have 4 teams again. We're going to have 17 through 19, 15, 16. As far as I know at this point in time, 2 13 and 14-year-old teams. And you figure it out, we're going to have probably about between 15 and 20 in each group. 13 and 14, probably 30. So we got 30, you can say 30 and 30, 60 kids, 60 young men we're going to have out there. And going back and further in history, there's been some situations, you and I mentioned it to you, where the girls program, the softball, there was a couple of individuals that decided that they wanted to play there on the road. And I don't know how many of you recall that. Maybe you're not old enough, maybe you haven't lived here long enough. Got into some problems with that, but then what come back was, we live here. We pay taxes here. Why do we have to pay again? Think about it.
I'll, right on here it says priority of use, that it could be waived if it's a partner program, and anything within the American Legion is probably considered a partner program.
I would hope so.
And to your point about we live here, I live here too, but I'm getting charged a fee to play baseball here. Other teams can go around that and not have to pay the city anything. So that's all we're doing, we're trying to even the
Well,
field.
here's the deal. And I'm gonna fight this too, because there's a concession stand down there. And when Legion programs are going on, who's getting the money out of the concession stands?
I think in the past, we've tried to give that away to anyone who wanted to take it,
But
and no one would.
The city's been getting the money out of it for the last 5 years.
I don't know if we've made money.
Well, that's the problem I can't understand. Legion run that thing a number of years ago, 50 cents a can for pop, 10 cents for a candy bar, 10 cents for popcorn. We'd make $4,000 or $5,000 in the summertime.
We offered it to the LBSA, we've offered it to the Legion parents, no one wants it.
But you know why they don't want it? Because somebody indicates that can't do it because of insurance liabilities.
And I don't know that.
That was come up at a council meeting. So, that's, I'm just making comments so that things
But-
don't go down the road the wrong way.
And as far as I know, the American Legion is a partner with the city of Lennox on this, that it's not going to affect them.
That's good to hear.
Hey, John, do you want to state your name and address? We missed that at the beginning. Do you want to state your name and address quick? Just
Oh,
so we forgot
John
that.
Kirtner, 901 South Elm Street.
Thank you.
A lot of people, Big John,
People know.
Grant,
There's a full packet in the back.
and
if
the
you want.
grouchy old guy.
John, do you want to take a packet in the back? There's the written draft policy that we're reviewing tonight as well, so, and thank you for that. So I just did want to mention the current policy, so in the packet provided and is online for public availability as well, there's the current policy as it states as of today, and then down below is a draft policy that, you know, this group can definitely discuss a little bit more. As you'll see, there's a, you know, kind of a recommendation for priority of use, which there already was, with some slight wording change, especially to that number 2, programs that have a partnership with City of Lennox. And then listed out are examples such as American Legion, Lennox School District, City of Chancellor, City of Ridley, so forth. Lennox Commercial Club, LBSA. So one part of the conversation I would love feedback from the group on is, A, if we like that, but then also if it needs to say approved, it's an approved partner, if that needs to go before, for example, before the council, like a recommendation would go forward to city council, or what we want to recommend there for language. And then down below, you can kind of see the additional ball field use fee structure that was new from what was in our current policy.
So could we go, partner in good standing or not in good standing? And that way we can deal with partners who've been working with us for years and new people. And then we can say if they're in good standing with you, well, we've been a partner, you know, since the rock started rolling. And, but then we haven't talked to them for 15 years, they would not be in good standing then. They'd have to come back into good standing. We'd have to figure out something like that. There would have to be like, but the Legion's always been communicating the whole time. It'd be somebody else coming back in and be like, hey, we used to do this, so we should be able to do it again. And that'll eliminate that, well, I know you used to do it, but.
I know that the new Lennox School District policy does use it says approved partners, and there's a process for, you know, kind of what it goes before. Casey's here, yeah?
Yeah.
Casey's here.
Yeah, you want me to talk
Yeah,
about it?
Joe, you have glasses on.
Yeah, I know, right? I really wear my eyes sore, so, I can
Sure.
talk about it a little bit.
State your name and your address if you.
Yeah, Casey Shade, I guess I'm technically not a resident, but, 400 South James T, but Sioux Falls, or, Lennox School District, representative. So we just did an approved partnership because we were having a problem too with our fees, is what do we charge people for how long and who do we charge? And what groups should actually be free, which ones shouldn't be. So we cleaned it up a little bit, did the per hour thing, because it was just a set fee, and it's like, okay, is that for all winter? Like a group that wants to use maybe a basketball court, is that for all winter? Is it count for all year, or should it just be an hourly? So we moved to an hourly, and then we did an approved partnership, and then again, that approved partnership could change if we wanted to too. Most of those are like our sponsors that want to come in to use our facilities. We just didn't want to necessarily open the door to any group that would come in. Like if it's a Canton-based group perhaps, or it's, you know, we are an orthopedic institute school, so maybe it's a Sanford one to come in and use it. We also got to reward the people who are giving to our community too and use that. And we did hourly rates for like our Performing Arts Center because there is a fee. I do have to pay somebody to be here, to help run all that equipment in there. Same thing with custodial costs. So if somebody people still use bathrooms, so I gotta have somebody that clean it there too, and pay them the extra that it could take out of having there on a weekend or stuff like that. But a lot of our partners, like the city's a partner, that we wouldn't charge for, any of our youth sports that are mostly all Lennox kids, we went 50% and up, can use stuff for free with an agreement and all that. And we did like we're looking at a family pass and where people can get in and looking at a behavior incentive too to help kids get more access. But it allowed me as the person who facilitates that to have cleaner language. And then people know, and then that would just help Christy be able to do that too. And we've talked too about with our facility agreements, just doing one big contract that we maybe renew every year that just says, hey, between Park and Rec coordinator and athletic director, we just work on our agreement on stuff versus having to do a rental agreement for every single time we use a space. So
What's the approval structure like? Is it just you?
for a partnership
Yeah,
type of deal,
like for approving the
yep.
partnership?
So a partnership, it's myself, our business manager, and our superintendent.
Okay,
So there's at least, you should try to get 2 out of the 3. So first they come to me, I say, yeah, that's a good deal, and then I go to them for final approval. It doesn't go to the school board, because the school board trusts us to make those decisions. Otherwise we have to take it to every school board meeting and that type of thing,
And
so,
that's once a month.
yeah, and that's once a month. It could be where you bring it to this group if you wanted to, but you could also divvy it out, where you would have it maybe Christy, Nathan, and then maybe have Cruzy be the next one as that type of person too. 3 people's nice, because if you find some disagreement, usually you can find a way, but that's kind of how we worked it out between those 3. So we get the business side, with the business manager, superintendent who represents the whole district, and then just me, kind of the person that they have to work with for facility space.
Thanks, Casey.
perfect.
Yeah,
The other one thing I wanted to point out was because of the conversation around, some of the teams that might be organized that aren't affiliated with the partner and things, that the bullet point down at the very last line, rental fees may not be waived at the discretion of the city if the sponsoring organization or individual is not a partner of the city and charges admission and entry fee, takes a collection or conducts sales, or operates a team or program that draws participants away from city-sponsored programs. Another way of wording that would be competes with city programs for participation, or with city programs, city and partner programs. So just putting that forward for discussion as well.
Which none of the current partnership programs do.
Right.
Because we were
Legion.
talking about earlier, like the Legion isn't drawing
No, they
kids, right?
took over.
Because exactly with that, so, it would make sense that they wouldn't be charged. I think what we're really talking about here are like tournament travel teams with that kiddos are joining, that they're forming outside of rec baseball specifically, right? I mean, that's really, I think, at the heart of,
Or softball.
or softball, both things going.
And sorry,
No,
I was gonna say for $15 an hour, that's for the whole team, I assume? So, I mean, how many
That's
practices
not-
are you gonna have? You might spend $300 for a team
yeah.
for the whole year, $400. Break that down they're already paying another tournament, they're paying that much for a tournament for a weekend. So I don't think that's a huge expense for them.
The other group I was thinking about is the amateur team. There's not necessarily that I know of like a partnership with the city, so I think that the fee would be assessed, for
In my mind, I mean, I think I'd be interested in including them in the group where they're not competing, pulling away from city. I guess, I've gone back and forth with this right here. I don't love the idea of charging a fee with people already paying taxes. I know that a small part of registration fees goes towards this right here. Especially because I think, biggest concern from my experience was availability of space. And I'm wondering if this can kind of be resolved with when we look at how we go ahead and how we schedule practices and how far in advance we're going, and if we're gonna make it available to them during like, baseball, parks and rec hours, and that might be 5 o'clock to 9 o'clock at night, and, letting them have practice, free practice to use the field from 8 o'clock in the morning till 4:30 at night, like when we're typically aren't scheduling practices, if we need to open it up to that point. I mean, again, like, to me, like, that's the biggest issue that I ran into when I coached was, like Steve said, like, there might be times available at the beginning of the year where Tuesday nights work, and everybody has their time, but when the game starts, all of a sudden there's no fields and people can't practice when they want to, and it's a bummer, I'd imagine, when it's, a coach is bringing their 10U team and, a 12U, challenge team or whatever is playing that isn't really affiliated. And so, I don't know, I lean more towards, not having a fee structure for them, but really looking at the scheduling side of pieces, but, I mean, that's just my opinion.
I mean, off the scheduling, like what you said, last year, for example, the softball field, there was no night until 9 o'clock that it was not reserved. It was every night of the week till 9 o'clock. There was somebody either practicing or game.
Right.
So the field was full every night.
Mhm.
But he's saying if they do it
But I mean-
during the day,
Right, so if it was something, but in the summertime, there was people during the day. I'm just talking, this was during school before it went out.
Yeah.
Then after that, then it was wide, then there was people there, it was still till 9 o'clock at night, it was still full.
Right.
So it would be very hard for a team to get in.
For a team that isn't
That
involved
isn't
in Parks and
involved
Rec.
with Park and Rec. Right.
And I think, and again, like
Because we only have one softball field,
right,
we've got 2 baseball fields and a t-ball field. That's pretty small.
and again, I empathize with that, and I don't want to burn bridges per se and have the high school softball team pay the price down the road, or Legion pay the price down the road if kids not playing. I mean, like, we want kids participating, but again, I like the idea of leaning preference towards Parks and Rec, city ran programs specific to like when there is an age, and trying to find a way to do that without a fee. I just don't know, I don't think a fee is gonna deter anybody, like you said, like it's minimal, but again, with the fact that with 75% and having that threshold, again, I don't feel as good about it as what I thought I did. I talked to the gentleman down in Vermillion who runs their Parks and Rec program, and they've had discussions like this in the past and have decided kind of on that same thing that they're not gonna charge a fee, but the only time where they make it available to competing programs are like during, like off hours, during that time, and they kind of have to, work around that or find alternative spaces, and I'll be honest, I went in more inclined with the structure and left that conversation a little more, on the edge of moving away from something like that. But again, just my opinion, and
good talk, good talk. Anyone else?
I wonder if it's almost more difficult though for them to use the field if you limit them to working hours. If they would prefer to have the option to pay, to have a chance to practice at night.
it does, and I think it potentially deters from not, playing in Parks and Rec. I'm not sure, it probably, I don't think either is gonna be a deterrent. I mean, the biggest thing, $15 certainly isn't, like Steve said. I mean, that's, if you have a team of 11 kids, that's, $1.20 less than that per kid, so.
And the other thing is, I'm pretty sure that they have whatever league they're in or whatever, like, they have field space in Sioux Falls if they need it, like they pay for that
With SEBA.
with
they're-
the registration. So they're paying for it one other time already, I guess, which I guess could be that they're double paying if they play in Lennox, but it also saves them travel time, and it might be a convenience thing, so.
Again, like I said, most of them are living here, they're paying taxes, they would expect to be able to use those things. I don't, so, yeah, we can leave it there, and
Could there be an option where they could have an option to pay a fee if they wanted to practice during those peak hours, or?
But we would never let them, I don't care how much they pay, they could never kick one of our programs.
No, still
If
in the
there's an
ordinance.
opening.
Right,
Yes,
if there was an
there's
opening, yeah.
Pay for like that slot, but then if they wanted to practice during daytime, they don't need to have a fee if it's not being used.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not, and I mean, maybe one way to even look at that is, like I said, having a rolling schedule where it's not like you don't get every Tuesday from May whatever to the end of July, just because things change, like to your point, Clint, like things change a lot when the season starts. It's hard to get time, and I don't love the idea of a Parks and Rec team not being able to practice because a field isn't open, because of, families and having the right to, they want more competition, joining the team right there and them utilizing the field. That's where I just personally don't feel comfortable with it.
Just to give a little bit more context, so last year we had that doodle calendar or a Google Doc, and the rec teams had first shot at, practice times and that sort of thing, and then each week, the two groups that were not associated with our program then could see what was available or untaken, and then would request times, and those requests would go through me. If it was available, I would plug them in, and so it worked fine, I thought it worked fine. When games started, it gets a little bit trickier, so I think we can add a little bit of a layer onto that this year, that if they're wanting, if a rec team is wanting more than the one practice that they originally signed up for, to make sure that that's maybe just a little bit clearer, but.
Yeah, especially if they have a Tuesday night and then there's a game Tuesday night, then that one team then doesn't get a practice. So if there's a game, then they gotta be able to flop a spot. That's the one thing I thought about is, I know, like when we had our high school games, we'd have 12U and 13U kids show up all the time for practice when we were playing our games, because nobody ever looked at the calendar. That way they could know that there's something going on this night, you're gonna have to rearrange to a different night.
And I'm looking at talking to the league about potentially having games only on certain nights, because then that'll help some of that consistency after games start and things like that too. So I'm not worried about the priority use. I think that we've got a pretty good system in place for that, and we can work on that pretty well. I just need some direction from you on what you'd like to move forward with to go to city council on this agenda item.
I honestly think that putting a fee thing in would be more hassle than it's worth for the one or two teams that would use it. There is just there's really not a high demand for that, because everybody who's using the field is either just regular citizens who are just out there with their kids or on a rec program. There's not very many.
I think there's beginning to be
High level.
more and more.
Right.
There is.
But then they would, then it's the priority off of this. They can't use it. If it's reserved for a rec team, then they can.
Yeah.
But then I do think we need to re-look at, like you said, once games start, it starts over, and then
Preseason,
the
practice
week
schedule,
before,
post games, yeah.
Parks and Rec teams get to look at when it's open, and they get to fill the schedule, and then the others get to it.
I like that.
Because that's why 2 years ago, I thought it was awesome, I was on like a Wednesday or something. Well, once games started, we didn't get to practice the whole year, unless we found a middle afternoon Sunday or something like that while everyone's camping. And so then I did Friday last year, and that worked because there were no games on Fridays. But everyone else that didn't have Friday had to find a different.
I like that.
So that-
Reset when the games start. I like
Yeah,
that.
and even if it's like a week before, this could be too much work, but send out a link or send out a spreadsheet, here's when it's open.
Well, your Google
Parks and
Doc was a
Rec.
live doc, so we just used the same thing we did last year.
Yeah, but I think you should give like a few days' notice to the Parks and Rec people then.
Right.
Let them get it done,
Yeah.
and then at some point it opens up for everyone else.
Yeah, everybody would have to have their requests in on the Sunday before the week.
Because the other thing is rain days, and all of a sudden we've got
Yeah. I can't-
more games, and now 3 weeks ahead of time, we put in for
Yeah,
Are you
Correct.
looking for a motion to move forward, to either to go to make a recommendation with the fees based in this memo to bring to city council? Is that what you're looking for?
I need to know as it relates to policy, how we wanna proceed.
These fees, would we still want to have them in place for, let's say, like a completely external organization, people that aren't from Lennox? Do we have anything in place?
We do not.
Like, let's say we had a Centerville team that wanted to come practice here.
We have the $100 field use that's currently in, it doesn't reflect in the policy, but it is in the resolution for the fee. And kind of going back to the conversation, and we would need to maybe detail that out a little bit better as to what is the $100? Is that for a whole day, or do we need to do a different breakdown? But if we have that in policy that that's the fee, then we have to make sure that we're clear in policy with when we're charging that, I need to know, am I charging when an amateur team uses the field, am I charging, I need to know that stuff. So
Something with
it's
the amateur,
currently in the resolution, passed as $100 day use. Well,
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
about a 2-hour use?
I think something with the amateur team, or what they used to do, was they gave kids free admission. And so, I mean, that's something that at least connects the kids to the
Well,
game.
it talked about certain things when it can't be waived, and one like that is when you are charging,
Well, but if you're not a partner.
right? Yeah.
But if you are a partner, like the Legion is a partner, they would charge
Right,
still.
yeah,
Cause they gotta pay umps and they gotta,
absolutely.
but
And if we're not ready to move forward with them, I mean, we can table this for now if we need to. I don't know how this all works, but we could potentially reconvene. We need to have this decided soon because this will potentially apply. So if we're not ready to, we might just have to have a special meeting, publicize that and try to reconvene on it, just to try to keep with time, unless you all are ready to make a decision tonight.
So I'm gonna motion to put this fee in place for external people from out of Lennox.
out of the
And-
school district.
Out of the school district, and amateur doesn't have to, they're grandfathered in.
what if they're not from Lennox?
The-
The amateurs?
if it's-
I'm not
if-
saying that's not the case.
The Lennox,
But-
you gotta be a Lennox amateur team, if you're gonna,
Okay,
yeah, if you're a non-Lennox amateur team and you wanna, then you would have to pay.
So
Meaning 75%?
Yeah,
that's my question.
Yeah, yeah.
And I,
that's what it's saying.
Yeah. If that makes sense as a motion.
could we just remove the bottom line where it says rental fees may not be waived? And take that part out for now? And,
See, and to me, that's the one part that I like, is the part where it can't be waived. Partner is not a partner in the city, charges the mission and entry fee, and then operating the team or program that draws participants away from a city-sponsored.
but you just said, I thought you were saying that you didn't want to charge.
I'm
Because
saying, like, with keeping.
there are two teams that would, or a team that would match that.
Yeah, you're right, with that language there, you're right,
But if
So
we're
that-
including them in the Lennox school district, then they would
with the
automatically be,
75%, right?
they would automatically be.
And so
waived.
that would give us a chance, or
Maybe
the
it's-
city, the chance to waive
Maybe it's a second bullet
Anything
point that we're really
based
talking
on
about then.
circumstance.
Maybe it's the second bullet point at that point where then we're not singling out the kids on a traveling team that aren't part of Lennox. Is that, I mean,
As long as 75% or more of the kids are from the Lennox school district,
Then it could be waived.
yeah, then it could be waived.
so it's really then we're saying the second bullet point, right, that would be our, we would be removing that. So approving the new fee structure and removing the second bullet point under the fee structure with, may not be waived, right there. Is that accurate, what everybody is saying right now? Do we wanna make that motion?
So that really leaves the fees applicable to organizations that do not partner with the city and do not have
Residents
current, yeah,
here.
Yeah,
yep,
and yeah, and that makes sense,
yeah,
because that's who we cater to. That's our,
yep.
And we'll work on equal access via scheduling as opposed to charging our residents an additional fee to use something in their
Yeah, and-
community.
yeah, and I think Christie will have the scheduling,
Okay. All right.
100%.
And
So
we need,
Are you, I mean, is that okay?
on scheduling
Time,
side,
yeah,
I will figure out the
Work-wise.
scheduling, priority use, yeah.
And she's good at that.
The policy still states the priority goes
Right.
to
Yeah.
the rec programs,
Yep.
and it still lays
That's
that
still
out.
criteria
Yep,
right there, yeah.
Yep,
do we, okay,
Sarah, did you?
Do we need to, the 75% right now, the way it states is district students, so in order to make sure amateur teams are not getting charged, if
I'd say
there's.
district residents.
Exactly.
It doesn't say, oh yeah, within the Lennox School District though, so I mean, that's right, because then that's encompanies Chancellor and Word, and Worthing at
Yes.
that point. It's not saying students, but it's a school district, right?
And then it
Was that
says
sponsored
Well,
children's
where's
activities?
that?
children's, do we just say
Children's.
activities then?
Just activities, yeah.
Okay, okay.
So that way we can get the amateur in. Okay, I motion to make that go forward, what we just talked about.
I'll second.
all right, do we have it written down exactly what we're,
If not, we could rewatch.
so we're,
Get on.
we're motioning to take out
To approve the new,
Revised.
the new fee structure and removing of the second bullet point under it may not be.
Okay. take out operates a team, that part, or all of it?
Correct.
Just
Take
that,
out the
just
second one, operates a team. And the
Yeah.
proposed fee structure.
Okay,
Okay.
Perfect.
All right.
Christie got it.
all right, do we have a second?
Yep,
All right.
Sailor second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay,
Can I get some feedback on the resolution as it is now, it's $100 per day, so for those that we would be charging if they're not a partner and that sort of thing.
Yeah, $100 a day, 50 per, like you got it here, the 15 an hour, 50 per
Do we
day.
like that? That's not something that, the resolution doesn't usually go to this group, so we don't need a motion on that, but I just
That
wanted
would
to
be
know
the
that this is
suggestion,
the
that you're
suggestion to
taking, that
city
you're
council.
taking those
Yeah.
fees
Yeah.
and taking like the $100 a day and
Yeah.
replacing
Are
that.
these the right amount? You
I
feel?
like, yeah, I
I
like
think
those.
that, I think those are fair.
Christie,
Yes.
I don't think you can, it's gotta be $100 because that's a city council meeting.
Right, so the recommendation is to have city council re-review that and
Right, but I
potentially.
mean, you know, the city council's already set it.
Right, yes, so it would be an.
They'd have to
amendment.
make an addendum to what they
They'd
did.
have to amend it.
we can make recommendations, but
To amend,
Yeah,
yeah. Yeah, thank you, I'll appreciate that. Okay,
okay, moving on to the Emerald Ash Borer Recovery Plan.
My backyard's never very covered.
okay, I will try to, do my best at this, but we have Matt Hart here that, I know he will promise to jump in to correct me if I'm wrong, because he's an arborist himself at City of Sioux Falls. So, on the EAB plan right here, I'm gonna just summarize and, see if there's any changes that you'd like to see on this plan to be recommended for city council review. So back in April of '24, Emerald Ash Borer, I'm just gonna say EAB, was confirmed in the community. And at that time, there was a response plan that was created, and so this is an updated version of that. The city of Lennox would really like to approach this as the EAB infestation as a slow-moving natural disaster. And we really need to work together quickly and effectively. There's some safety hazards and different things that we need to be familiar with and cognizant of. So back in 2024, there was an initial inventory of ash trees that was completed by Sam, an arborist with Aspen. And we removed, based on that assessment, about 160 trees that were kind of in that poor to fair condition. And that leaves about 150 ash trees on the right-of-ways and on city property. So that's gonna require ongoing management. And then also last June, there were 13 trees treated in Westerman Park, so kind of keep that in mind. So that was kind of laid out here on the first page. In addition to that, there's an estimated 800 to 900 trees, ash trees located on private property. That's just an estimate. And those trees either need to be protected or removed when they decline from EAB. So the plan that's set forth is really into 3 stages: assessment, and then engagement and mitigation and recovery. And so, moving to the second page, the plan is to really engage the community, making sure that everybody's educated, newsletters, mailers, social media, having an open house with Matt here and Sam and Dr. John Ball from SDSU to kind of hold a public forum on that to educate the community, and that would be this summer. And then potentially have the city council reviewing and being asked to declare all ash trees a public nuisance in 2026, and with enforcement beginning in 2027. As part of the assessment, what are we gonna call it? What was your recommendation?
You can survey the city and inspect each parcel.
Okay, so survey, maybe instead of using the word assessment, we call it surveying.
Right.
Okay.
Survey the parcels in the city.
Okay, so we'd be looking at that in April of 2027 is the recommendation. Marking for removal in Westerman Park, those that have declined to the extent that they can. Those that are continuing to be able to be treated, that they haven't reached the decline in the canopy. You getting that right?
If they're better than 30%, then they can still be treated.
Still be treated, and that's an every 2-year treatment. So then we'd continue on with that treatment, or it would be marked for removal. And then when it comes to street trees or the public right-of-ways, those would be reassessed in April. That cost of assessment would be about approximately $5,200. And then the property owners of those right-of-ways could then choose if they want to treat, if that's possible to still do so. Otherwise, the remaining would be marked for removal. So of the about 160 trees that are left in the right-of-ways, the approximate cost would be about $50,000. So this council, we'd have to look at the budget to see if we're doing that over the course of several years or able to budget that all in one big shot at that time. And then when it comes to private trees, the recommendation is to have a community-wide survey and inventory done in April of 27, documenting the tree locations and evaluating their overall condition. And then at that time, letting community members know if they have ash trees, what their condition is, and ask that they either be treated or if they've reached the point that they've become a nuisance or a safety hazard, that they would be removed then at that time. They would then potentially be declared a public nuisance and subject to removal according to our current city ordinance as well. And then in terms of recovery, we'll continue to look at different grants and so forth. Consider a tree rebate or cost share program, with the community. We'd be actively looking at what we can do to make sure that we can help residents with some of those costs. The cost of the removal or treatment on private property is the cost is to the residents themselves, so. That's my summary of this. The entire thing was in your packet, but if there's any changes that would need to be made, or questions that you have before going to council with this, now's the time.
So there's a lot to unpack here. You can look at 3 different points here. You could have your park trees, you could have your public right-of-way trees, and then you will deal with your private trees. So I like the steps that have been taken so far, in my opinion, for you're treating some in high-value trees, like in the ball fields and stuff. Western Park have been treated, so we're not gonna lose those right away. You've done some removals, so those areas might be good candidates for replacement now. you're halfway done with the street trees, which is great. And giving the budding private property owners the chance to treat those will help take some of the burden removal costs away from the city if they decide those trees are valuable to them and they front that cost. So that's a good option for them. It works for both parties in that regard. But then once we get to the private property trees, this is where we're gonna have the struggle. So the onus for removal will be on the private property owners, and some of these areas are gonna be tight, they're inaccessible. Tree work is not cheap. I don't know if any of you had one done lately. But the planning process for these private property owners will be key. So the education piece of it, the notification piece of it that you discussed, I think that's very important. I know it costs some money to go get these surveys done and to go notify property owners, even to mailers, door hangers, whatever you're gonna do. But I feel that's worth it in the end, just to give these people a chance to plan. Because you're not going to buy a new pair of shoes. You might be looking at $10,000 for tree removals in your backyard that you essentially did nothing to bring on yourself. So if we can do as much of that as we can, I think 2027 is a good time to really start looking at these, because even though we've probably had emerald ash borer here for a couple of years prior to the state notifying the city of Lenox, we still have a lot of trees that are in good condition. It's not hopping from tree to tree to tree every other month. It's moving slowly across the city as it goes. And realistically, if we can let these property owners know before we get past that 50% threshold for condition, they still have some time to do it. That gives the city time to work with them, for them to come up with a plan. And then at that point, if they fail to act on that plan, then the city can move forward with the enforcement process if need be. But by the time that happens, there's been a lot of opportunity to remove those trees. And so condemning every tree, ash tree within the city that's not being treated, that seems like quite a bit, but at the same time, it would take a resource. If you didn't do that, it would take resource to constantly go back, re-inspect each property. You could have 10, 12 contacts with each property owner. It could be a different story each time. They might have difficulty getting an arborist there to do the work for various reasons, but if the city then ended up having a contractor come through the enforcement process, you're most likely gonna get the best deal you can. It would then go to the assessment property tax assessment for them, and the situation would be resolved. And the risk would be gone to the neighbors, to the kids playing in the yards, and anything else that goes on. And then going back to the recovery part of it, the voucher program, I think if you could do something like that would be valuable, because at that point, people then would have tree fatigue. And we don't wanna have a bare canopy in the city of Lenox. So trees have a lot of value for all kinds of reasons. I don't care if you wanna talk about pollinators all the way to stormwater control. I mean, there's a lot of value to having trees in Lenox. So I think if that's something that can be ran through, it's a costly proposition, but I think it's well worth it. It's one of those deals, once you take all those trees down, I don't know if any of you have been through the streets of Watertown lately, but they recently started removing trees, and as you headed to that center, there were rows of trees. And that's what our future is gonna be too, as we do this. And then take that number times, 6 or 7 from private property, you're looking at a bigger location.
I don't envy the city council decisions, because I don't feel good about telling a property owner what they need to do with their land, especially to your point, when it's a lot of money and I mean, me coming from a place of privilege where we could cut our tree down, I know not everybody can afford that. So I understand the plan. I don't love it, but I also am sympathetic to that.
I think this proposal sounds great.
One thing that I learned from several people that I talked to was that the cost can get even greater as it declines. So once it does become very hazardous and it needs to come down, the companies that you're calling to come in and take it down, it becomes very risky for them, safety-wise, and so the cost, increases. So that's part of what the education that we want to get out to people is, we know it costs a lot, but it could cost more.
Absolutely,
the
and
longer
I know
it
from an
leaks.
insurance standpoint, a dead tree that and is falling on your house, and you're likely not being able to recover that. I mean, act of God no longer with it, with the tornado I mean, it's just,
Yeah.
that doesn't feel good telling property owners what to do with their property.
I mean, if you can take a tree down when it still has structure, you could climb it. If it's decayed, you have to get in there with a boom. I mean, in some places, I mean, it's not good.
Okay? We don't have to vote or anything on that, do we?
We'd like
We
a
do.
recommendation.
Okay, sorry.
I recommend going through what you have, because I think it's the best thing that we can do.
I second that.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Did you say?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, and then we're ready to adjourn. So can I get a motion to adjourn?
I'll motion to adjourn.
I'll
Mm.
second.
All in favor?
Aye. Meeting number 2.